Co-planning norms, procedures, and transitions for middle school grade brands.
Hi, I'm Warwick, and I was in charge of researching norms for our cohort. The first two norms I really liked, which creates a classroom contract and a list of class rules. The ideal way to create both of these norms is to include the students in the process. This way, students feel involved, important, and are far more likely to buy into the rules if they had a hand in making them. Letting students make a poster after the group has finalized the rules is a great way to have them displayed for easy reference, both for the students and the teacher. Another way to talk about class norms would be an under-the-desk Q&A activity, whereby students ask and answer questions provided by the teacher, as well as any of their own, to find out the correct procedure for each situation. The ideal classroom activity is a nice way to create a more inspirational mantra for the class. Students discuss what the ideal classroom would be like, and then together as a class would create a statement or set of statements which reinforces those ideas. Most importantly, however, is the continual reinforcement of class rules. If rules are barely referred to, they are soon forgotten, and students will begin to stray. If you regularly remind your students, they'll have less of an excuse for misbehavior and will be more likely to follow the guidelines set up earlier in the year.
5 core classroom procedures. Firstly, we feel it is important to provide clear, concise directions in the classroom. Too often, directions can feel vague, confusing, or indirect from a student's perspective. The goal is to simplify the language as much as you can, make it direct, and use as few words as possible. While providing elaborate details can feel rewarding to adults, middle schoolers can easily feel overwhelmed and unsure of the exact goals or what actions to take. Secondly, it's important to establish clear procedures for entering and exiting the classroom. In addition to arrival and departure procedures, there are a variety of reasons why students need to leave or return to the classroom during instruction time. These can include getting water, going to the bathroom, returning from the counselor's office, and more. As all of these various scenarios provide opportunities for the exiting and entering student to disrupt the flow of the class or to distract from active learning or engagement, it's important to design and reinforce procedures that demonstrate the respect for the learning environment. Next, we recommend the use of dated stamps. This not only is a helpful reminder to both teachers and students of the state of assignments, but it also signals to the class that the process has been formalized and that timeliness is an important aspect of learning. Without such formalization, students may drift into thinking that turning in assignments on time is a casual or optional part of the class. And lastly, we strongly recommend the use of hand-in trays. Similar to the stamps, this provides a clear physical reminder and formalization of what can become an informal process. By solidifying the procedures, students come to appreciate its role in the logistics of the classroom overall and understand their expected role in facilitating that process, situating them as increasingly independent learners.
5 core transitions that we would like to implement in middle school. So there are essentially 3 types of transitions: entering the class and taking seats, switching from one academic activity to another, and then exiting the class as well. Like any other academic procedure, transitions are taught through explicit explanations, clear modules, rehearsals, and reviews. It is essential for you to keep your transitions basic. Standardizing the process with some easy steps is an easy way to make sure that students know what's happening. Something like securing students' attention, focus on me please, explaining the procedure, and then preparing the kids with a signal is something that you need to make sure that your transitions are smooth. Instead of using a word like go, you can use a word like smooth, which means that students don't get frantic and mayhem ensues, and it reminds them that this is supposed to be a smooth transition. Some of the transitions that we focused on was signals and attention grabbers. Perhaps part of and separate from your routines, we can also consider signals. These can be hand signals where students can show to a teacher if they need something, and can also have attention grabbers such as class, 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 and then the students say yes, 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 or the teacher can say hocus pocus, and students can respond with everybody focus. Another thing that's essential is to rearrange. So studies have shown that middle school students can really only concentrate on one activity for 10 to 12 minutes per activity. So making sure that you have various transitions and making sure that you rearrange the class allows that there's room for more activities and keeping your students focused. One more is deliberate mistakes. Making deliberate mistakes is a way for students to kind of catch you out. You can announce to students that you intend to make deliberate mistakes or errors and for them to try and find these. You can either make them funny or you can just have it be a little bit more academic, especially if you're trying to teach maybe something like vocabulary and definitions and so on. Another one that's quite fun is accent time. So when you want to grab your students' attention, you can use a different accent. So you can either use a very British accent or a very American accent or any other kind of accent that will grab your students' attention and refocus on you. You can give instructions in these accents, and students actually do find this to be quite funny. Another one is formative assessment. So while we transition moving from desk to desk to desk, a teacher can try to have a graphic organizer on each desk, and students can fill this in as they are transitioning, and once they get to their place where they need to be and other students are maybe still getting to where it is they need to be. This means that even though other students are still moving around and still transitioning, those who have done it faster and those who are already where they need to be can then be doing something actively while waiting for the other students to get to where they are. Implementations. So from all of the amazing norms and procedures and transitions that we've researched, these are the three that I think I would like to try to implement. The first one for setting up expectations and norms around the classroom is the under the desk Q&A. I really like this activity. It's a fun kind of scavenger hunt activity where you can have students look up different rules and how to ask for help. And I think that you could even turn this into a get to know your teacher activity as well, where you can add some information about yourself, and it can be a little bit of both of a get to know your teacher and her expectations activity if you like. For procedures, I really like hand-in trays for essays. I generally have my students also email me their essays so we get a soft copy, and most grading is done online. But there are often times where we do worksheets in class, and I think having hand-in trays is something that's really nice. Something that I saw also that I really liked is you can even divide them into things I need you to teach me again, things I'm really confident in, and things that I need help in or what I would like more help with. So you could even go so far as to do that as well. And then for transitions, making deliberate mistakes. So having the students really listen to what it is that you're saying and making those mistakes, and meaning that they're actively listening even though they're listening for mistakes, but then also picking up on the fact that they do have mistakes. The pros and cons, I think, for deviation from these, some of the pros is that it allows for flexibility, it embraces individuality and supports educational needs. And then deviating from these can create confusion, and it can also lead to a breakdown of class expectations and procedures, which could lead to a bit of chaos, really.
In terms of my personal classroom implementation priorities, I'd focus on the following. For expectations, I think it's important to balance discipline with compassion, finding ways to empathize with a student enduring their developmental years, and forging even stronger student-teacher bonds by overcoming behavioral issues together. For procedures, I'm a fan of administering precise directions. I've noticed that I don't always do this, and that my instructions can sometimes wander, and the resulting student work reflects their uncertainty as to exactly what to do. By focusing and simplifying my language, plus formalizing it via more and more visual aids, I can build student confidence and trust in the classroom by facilitating targeted learning. And lastly, for transitions, I would focus on attention getters. These activities can be fun, but also a great reinforcement tool for specialized content. And they're also a great way to introduce movement into the classroom, especially for students who can sometimes be hunched over computers for extended periods of time. Ultimately, they're a great way to signal to the whole class that new information is on its way. To me, the pros of deviation are 1. The opportunities for differentiation, 2. The ability to allow alternative assignments for different types of learners, and 3. Allowing for digital submissions in today's digital world. However, some of the cons of deviation include 1. An inconsistency in student and classroom expectations, 2. The possibility that students may misinterpret deviation as a form of favoritism for one student over another, or 3. General classroom mutiny.
For the norm, procedure, and transition I'd implement in my classroom, I included the following. I'd like to include a classroom contract jointly created by my students. This would give us all a clear set of guidelines for the year and provide an opportunity for students to discuss any worries or concerns before they become a problem. I would also like to include clearly defined procedures for students entering and leaving the classroom. One of my pet peeves is students' lack of awareness, where they'll often raise their hand while I'm explaining something, as if to ask a question about the content, only to ask to go for a drink of water, thus interrupting the flow of the lesson and subsequently leaving them confused when they return. Part of the procedure would be learning the appropriate time to ask to leave the class. Obviously, emergencies are exempted. Finally, with regards to transitions, attention grabs are something I'm just starting to include in my class. However, as another group member is speaking on that, accent time is something else I'd like to include. It really appeals to me and my idea of a fun classroom. And if students having a little laugh at my expense helps make the transition a little easier, I'm all for it.